Welcome to The Buzz. I'm Christopher Conover. This week, we hit the road with Tucson's mayoral candidates. Ballots are out for Tucson's city elections, and Election Day is just a few weeks away. This year's mayoral race has 4 names on the ballot, with both major parties putting up candidates against a third party and an independent. Rather than hold typical debates, AZPM decided to go about things a little differently this year. Last week, we drove candidates on a set route to talk about the good and the bad we saw along the way. Republican Janet J.L. Wittenbracker and Democratic incumbent Regina Romero. A quick note, we left out Libertarian candidate Arthur Kirschgen, who has yet to report any campaign income and does not have any public presence beyond signs paid for by an independent political action committee. Our route started on Alameda Street, just outside of the building where the winner will have their office, and we headed north into Midtown. The first candidate to hop in the car with us was Ed Ackerley, and the first sight we saw along the way was crews setting up for the annual festival, Tucson Meet Yourself.
Yeah, it's amazing what we do have in Tucson. I was reminiscing with somebody just the other day that one of the things that makes Tucson great is the people and the culture that we get to experience. I've been here 64 years, and these events and festivals have always been a staple in my personal life, and they are fun and exciting and makes Tucson pretty special.
We know we're in Tucson, it seems, because there's road construction. What is it about Tucson roads? And everybody says they're going to fix them, but here we are still with wonderful or not Tucson roads.
Well, obviously we have that new bond election, which was passed in a 10-year program to resurface all the neighborhood streets. Although that's a noble idea and a noble cause, I have an over-under with some of my friends that my road won't be touched in front of my house. It's just unrealistic to think that over a 10-year period you can pave every single road in the city of Tucson. I think what we really should be doing is focusing on these major thoroughfares. And part of it is, it's a little different here in Tucson than in other places because of the way the roads were laid down on raw dirt with asphalt, and you get one little crack in it during a monsoon season and all of a sudden you've got a pothole the size of a small VW, and it's just very difficult to keep the roads in shape. And so we're faced with 75, 80, 100 years worth of construction that's coming back to bite us now. So I'm not saying that we shouldn't pave the neighborhood streets, because there's some that haven't been touched in 75 years, but I do think we need to tackle these major roads.
We're stopping for the light here at Speedway and Stone, the park on our right. The city's gone in and done a lot of work on, but that used to be a big homeless encampment, hangout, a lot of drugs going on. Tucson has got a real homeless problem. Can the city really do anything, or is this an even larger problem?
Well, the Sun Belt states are obviously experiencing an influx in homelessness across the south and up the coasts, and I think Tucson could send a message pretty quickly that we are not going to be a haven for lawless people that come to Tucson to take advantage of us. Now, the person that has economic difficulties or even mental problems and needs some help, we're Tucsonans, we're going to help those people. But Tucson has a reputation of giving away free services. That's an attitude that's maybe belongs on the coast and doesn't necessarily belong in Tucson. I think what we need to do is clean up our parks and clean up our city streets and try to do a better job of providing the services to those people that need it, but disrupting those people that are taking advantage of the situation. And that comes down to my number one policy issue, which is we don't have enough police in our police force to solve this problem. We're working with 762 police officers, and a mere few years ago when Roberto Villaseñor, my high school classmate, was police chief, he had almost 1,400 police officers. So we just need to do a better job of funding the police and getting the right people in the right jobs so that we can disrupt this process of people living in parks.
You talk about disrupt. Is it a change in the services we offer, or is there another way to, as you said, disrupt what's going on?
Well, the current administration believes that housing first is the answer, that out of the 6,000 to 9,000, depending on who you listen to, homeless people that live in Tucson, that we should go about providing a free room and board, maybe even a free house to them that they can get back on their feet. All you have to do is go down to 4550 South Palo Verde and talk to Lisa Chastain, who's the director of the HSL Family Foundation Center for Opportunity, and she'll tell you that giving somebody a free house doesn't help in their addiction problem or their mental illness. You have to give services that will help them get off of fentanyl or help them kind of try to live a normal life, and just giving them a house doesn't help. As a matter of fact, in many cases, it exacerbates the problem. I believe that what we need to do is services first, and we need to adjudicate those people that are taking advantage of our system and are stealing from local businesses. It's just a matter of policy and leadership.
As we continue to drive, we're coming up to the interstate here. We just went by what was an old movie theater, is now going to become a casino. And there's some other economic development in this area. Caterpillar will go by here in a second. What kind of economic development do you want to see brought in to inner Tucson?
I think we start first with cleaning up Tucson and making it safe. And then we have a lot of companies that are in Tucson and have been operating here. I have a company that's been here for 55 years. And the economic development folks don't come to my office, don't call me up and say, how can we make sure that your company is sustained and help you? So let's start with the companies we have here, and let's make an effort to make sure that they have the resources that they need in order to be successful.
The Santa Cruz River is on our right, but Santa Cruz River kind of brings up the water issue. What do you see that you can do as mayor to ensure that the city of Tucson's got water as long as we need it?
One of the bright spots in the Tucson management over the last 35 years has been recycling and the refurbishing of water and the conservation of water through the Beat the Peak program back in the 70s and 80s. I think water, the biggest problem we have with water is right straight ahead of us here in South Tucson, where the PFAS and the chemicals are in the water, and the Air Force and Hughes and other people, Raytheon now, or RTX is called now, are working with the federal government to adjudicate that and make sure that there's a Superfund cleanup over here. And lots of people who live in the south part of Tucson are very concerned about clean and healthy water.
We're coming under the Cushing Street Bridge now, and off to the right is Tucson Fire Station 1. How is the fire department doing?
They are pretty close to the budgeted number of employees that are actual firefighters. If you speak to the individual firefighters, though, they are working double shifts. They're taking extra shifts, and so there is a lot because of this fentanyl crisis that they're dealing with and going out. And the majority of their runs, they did over 100,000 runs this past year, and a good percentage of those were fentanyl related.
You mentioned fentanyl as we're coming our way back to the old county courthouse here where we started. Is there anything the city can do about fentanyl, or is this a much larger issue?
Well, I think that we can make sure that we don't just accept that this is the way it's going to be, and that fentanyl in our parks and in our public spaces and so forth is acceptable. So we have to disrupt, we have to educate, we have to adjudicate, we have to incarcerate. We have to do what we have to do to make sure that it's not acceptable to have an illicit drug trade and usage in our cities. You know what the city of Tucson needs is leadership. We need someone to step forward and say, we're going to focus on leadership, we're going to focus on empowering the police chief, the fire chief, and focus on the city manager. He's got 5,000 employees. Let's turn him loose. It's time. It's time for us to do something different.
All right, Ed, well, we're back actually in the exact same parking place we left from. Thanks for taking a ride around with us.
Well, thank you guys. Thank you, Chris. I appreciate what you guys do with Arizona Public Media.
That was independent mayoral candidate Ed Ackerley. Next to join us for a drive is Janet J.L. Wittenbracker, the Republican nominee for mayor.
As you know, ballots mailed, and they have to be returned via U.S. Postal Service by October 31st or dropped off by November 7th. So that means from this weekend on, I'm going to be knocking on doors. So I'm afraid I'm going to miss the Meet Yourself event this year.
As we're coming down the road here, there's a train in front of us. People may or may not hear the horn going. I think this first site we're seeing is kind of emblematic in some ways of Tucson: road construction.
Road construction. Road construction that has been going on for a long time now.
Exactly, and it seems like every candidate or elected official I've ever talked to said, we're gonna fix the roads. Okay, so how do we do it?
Well, the money's there. We've had Proposition 411. We also have general fund money. We need to seriously look at the budget and reallocate funds as necessary to fully and adequately fund our transportation department so they can actually rebuild roads. Resurfacing is important where it's going to improve the longevity of the road, but if the road is destroyed, we just need to dig it up and put it back down. And we just need to focus. Now, the city has 3 big issues: crime, we have bad roads, homelessness. My personal belief is if you attack and fight fentanyl with all your force, meaning get all your police department out there and building up your police department to fight fentanyl, you vastly reduce crime, you vastly reduce homelessness, and you vastly reduce poverty.
And we're coming up right now, the Speedway and Stone. This park used to be a big homeless encampment, a lot of open drug use. City came in and cleaned it up. Is that an example of what you're talking about?
But on the back end of the park, you may not have noticed a homeless group. The city has an ordinance in place that prohibits solicitation of funds anywhere near vehicular traffic. The city of Tucson is not enforcing that law. But that ordinance also has to be written to prohibit encampments and suburban camping.
You mentioned police, recruiting of police. We've talked to the police chief, the sheriff. They have retention issues, they have recruitment issues. What as mayor can you do to get, in this case, Tucson police, to get the numbers of men and women that they need?
The issues with the staffing in the police department, we know there was a horrendous attrition as a result of low morale, also the vaccine mandate. Money is a good motivator. An impressive recruitment package is a good motivator, but also increasing the salaries of our officers. They're still under the surrounding cities. They're still less than the surrounding cities. So money's going to be a big factor, but also having a mayor and council that is going to stand behind their police officers.
We're coming up on the intersection of Grant and Oracle. In some ways, maybe a typical intersection in Tucson. What do you see when you look at this typical Tucson corner?
It does concern me how many big box stores are leaving Tucson, and it's due to a great deal of theft, shoplifting, theft. So that does concern me, and it's nice to see that building occupied, but we see a whole lot of buildings around town that are boarded up. Now, the No-Tell Hotel, as my understanding, is housing first. It's not affordable housing. There is a distinct difference. That has failed. It is a failed program. With regards to affordable housing, I say there's a systematic issue if we have a constant demand for affordable housing. So what is that the result of? We do have an aging population here, so I'll give you that. And pensions just don't go as far as they used to. And we certainly can't expect our elderly to go, get a part-time job or whatever. But why do we have such a high poverty rate here in Tucson? And why is our median salary so much less than other cities? And it has a lot to do with the lack of talent. So I used to work for a large defense contractor here in town. And I left that defense contractor after the lockdowns. So I got a job out of Virginia. I got a $25,000 a year bump for doing a job that's actually a grade lower than the job I had here in town. So you ask yourself, well, how is it that that defense contractor is paying so much less than this other defense contractor? And it's because, one, we have a talent problem, but two, we have a talent shortage, but two, there's no competition here. But if you have this environment where we don't have businesses competing against each other and we don't have that talent pool, that's going to keep our wages down.
We're also, as we're here on the frontage road, coming up on Caterpillar, talking about business development. But the Santa Cruz River now has some water in it and is coming back, which does bring us to water. The city does not control the Colorado River. We know that, but it sort of controls us. What can the city do to make sure, if you're mayor, that we've got the water we need?
Well, the city's doing a really good job with water. It's one of the things that city does very well. It should be a national model. Or let me just say this, it should be the model for how our other city departments are running. But
that's high praise.
It is. Okay, do we have 50 years worth of water, 100 years worth of water? That's pretty good, and I'm by no means an expert in, I don't even know what to call it, waterology, but we need to be smart about building. We need to be smart about how high rises are going up. Are we requiring a water plan of them that will sustain our water? But conservation is with the individual. I think you could reward conservation as opposed to punishing overusage. Say we'll just throw out a random 10%. You lower your water usage by 10%. Of course, your bill's going to go down, but maybe your rate should go down a little bit too.
Coming behind the TCC, but here's one of our streetcar stops. What do we need to do with transportation?
I think at the moment, we don't have the luxury of spending money on transportation out of the general fund. I am adamantly against fare-free transit. It's not free. It costs the taxpayers millions of dollars a year, and it's created an unsafe environment. I think I need to better understand that paradigm between SunTrans, which is a for-profit organization, and why is it that they were receiving so many funds from the city of Tucson?
All right, well, we have finished our route, pulling back into City Hall, where your office could be soon if the voters agree. So thanks for spending some time riding around Tucson with us.
Well, it's very nice. It's very nice to get to know you.
That was Republican mayoral candidate Janet J.L. Wittenbracker. We're taking a tour of Tucson with mayoral candidates this week. Our final cruise around Midtown and downtown came with incumbent Democratic candidate Regina Romero.
One of the reasons that I love Tucson Meet Yourself so much is that it has art and music, and it's a display of the cultures that come together in Tucson. And
we eat.
And we eat culture. We eat culture. And so it's such a beautiful concept of understanding who we are.
So let me talk about another Tucson icon as we turn up onto Stone Avenue here, road construction. And it seems like as long as I've been here, people have been talking about we need to improve our roads.
Right here.
And we're still talking about
right it. Right here on 6th and
Stone, yeah.
We are building in underpass. That particular project, the Downtown Links, has been in planning, get this, 30 years. It's been decades in terms of the needs of our infrastructure. Our roads have not been invested on for many, many decades, and now we have to confront the deterioration of our infrastructure. And as mayor, I've had the opportunity to lead on passing Proposition 411, which invests $600 million into every residential road in the city of Tucson and $150 million into park and pedestrian safety. We're killing way too many pedestrians and cyclists. It's wonderful for Tucson. And we're passing Stone and Speedway, that corner.
Which has been open for a long time.
Southwestern corner of Stone and Speedway partially was owned by the city of Tucson, We finally purchased that privately owned parcel. We're going to be able to create mixed use and mixed income apartment units.
You bring up an interesting, especially on that corner, because the park right across the street there was a big homeless encampment for a while, a lot of open drug use. That park's been cleaned up. You still see some things going on there.
I was a council member in Ward 1 and represented that area, and we worked very closely with TPD and Housing Community Development to find the root of what was happening there, and it was drug sales. We, with the help of TPD and the neighborhood, really did a lot of work to remediate it.
We're
here.
Coming up, I was going to say, we're coming up here. This
Yes.
is one of the No-Tell Motel we're coming
Yes.
up on. Grant and Oracle, big iconic corner. What do you see when you look at this area?
This is part of the Thrive in the O5 and an area of our city that really needs attention. That Circle K on Oracle and Grant
Right.
used to be a location where there was a lot of open air drug usage and people selling fentanyl meth drugs. In partnership with TPD, they targeted that area to do investigation and make sure that they were catching the criminals. And this particular area, passing through Old Pascua neighborhood, another area of our city that has historic disinvestment. In my partnership with the Pascuayaqui tribe and Chairman Yocupicio and the Old Pascua leadership, and they're part of the neighborhood that are going to receive more investment. And the Pascuayaqui tribe purchased the theater.
And putting in a casino.
They're putting in a casino, and we're working with them, putting this land into
the Pascuayaqui hands.
reservation.
Right.
It's
I would think
huge,
big economic development for right
economic
here,
development.
at I-10 and Grant.
It's going to be huge, and really looking at the traffic.
As we sit here in the traffic. Exactly.
Really looking at the traffic.
Right, I would say maybe we didn't pick the best time to go under I-10 on Grant at almost 4 o'clock in the afternoon.
It's an example, of the issues that we have to confront. We have major city issues. The responsibility should not lie on cities alone. So as I got it, even through the pandemic, we created a program, Housing First, that is an evidence-based program. And it's a piece of the puzzle. It's working, but it's very overwhelming, the problem. We need the state of Arizona, we need the federal government to help cities like Tucson and across the country investing in a myriad of issues.
And we're going by one of my favorite little Tucson gems, the Santa Cruz River.
Oh my God, it's life.
It's life, but it's also kind of brings us to water.
Yes.
We do not control the Colorado River, but it certainly exerts some control over all of us.
Right?
So what can the city do to continue ensuring that we all have the water we need?
Tucson Water Department, and I'll give credit where credit is due, previous mayors and councils have been so far ahead of any other city in Arizona, and I would venture to say any other city in the entire Southwest. We've been working on our water resources for at least 3 decades. First and most importantly is making sure that we're delivering clean, safe water to people's homes. But we are using, as Tucsonans, because of our water ethic of conservation, the same amount of water that we did back in the 80s.
And we're a lot more of us.
With the double of people.
As we're getting ready to make the left onto Cushing Street and work our way back into the more traditional downtown, we see Tucson Fire Station 1 right there, which kind of brings us to public safety. Hiring and retention's a problem. What can the city do? What can the mayor do to get more men and women in blue on the street?
Well, for the first time in 5 years, the numbers of commissioned officers is growing. So we've grown 2.5%, but we've grown. And the reason that is happening is because we have an incredible police chief, Chad Kazmar. I was honored to appoint him as our new chief, but also because we've done incredible investments in the pay for our commissioned police officers. We created a new position, a community safety officer position. Public safety is so much bigger than just our police officers. Our police department is one piece, and very important piece, but for far too many decades, our society have been piling on responsibilities to our officers that they shouldn't carry. They are not mental and behavioral health specialists. It's time to lift that load and share the responsibility of community safety.
That's a good place to stop. We are back in our parking place at City Hall. So thanks for riding around with us.
No, thank you so much. This is a very creative idea.
That was Regina Romero, the incumbent Democrat in the race for Tucson mayor. These interviews were shortened versions of what we recorded. You can hear longer interviews on our website. You can also see the map of our route there. And that's the buzz for this week. Tune in next week as we talk with city council candidates. You can find all our episodes online at azpm.org and subscribe to our show wherever you get your podcasts. Just search for The Buzz Arizona. We're also on the NPR app. Zach Ziegler is our producer with production help from Desiree Tucker. A special thanks this week to Katya Mendoza. She was our driver for this episode. Our music is by Enter the Haggis. I'm Christopher Conover. Thanks for listening.
Arizona Public Media's original programming is made possible in part by the Community Service Grant from the Corporation for Public Broadcasting.